Lucha-masks.com, in partnership with Mask Republic, give you personal protective masks to keep you lucha strong in the fight versus COVID-19. With world-class luchadors Blue Demon Jr., the Lucha Brothers, LA Park, Ultimo Dragon, Cain Velasquez, Conan, and so much more. Head to lucha-masks.com and you too can become a masked warrior. Lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, luchacentral.com presents The Business of the Business.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Business of the Business, the only podcast dedicated to taking you inside how your favorite officially licensed merchandise gets made, with a special nod to the world of Lucha Libre and pro wrestling. I'm Kevin Kleinrock, president of Masked Republic, and I am excited this week because not only do we have one of my favorite collaborators for Masked Republic on the show, but whether we had ever worked with him or not, an artist that I've truly come to love his work as a fan. So I'm very excited to talk to Jesse Hernandez, who's better known as Urban Aztec in the art world this week. And we're going to get to look at two really interesting sides of the coin because he represents at times both sides of officially licensed product. He has his original creations and characters and art designs that he makes that then get licensed onto official products of his own, vinyl figures, t-shirts, apparel, posters. But then also he is hired to do officially licensed products for everyone from Masked Republic to World Wrestling Entertainment, Marvel, every major Bay Area sports team, San Jose Sharks, Oakland Athletics, the San Francisco Giants. So I'm really looking forward to this one, and we're going to get into it right now. With me right now, I'm very excited. It is similar, I guess, a little bit to when I spoke with Jeff Everett. There are artists that we work with often and artists that I'm a fan of, but we never actually get to sit down and talk about, how the magic happens and about their careers and the amazing things that they do, because we're always so busy, either with our projects or with our lives. And so I'm really looking forward to sitting down for the next hour or so and talking with Urban Aztec, Jesse Hernandez. Jesse, thank you for joining me today.
Yo, thanks for having me, brother, man. It's always good to chop it up with you. And I always look forward to seeing what Big Kev's up to.
I was trying to remember how we first connected. And I think I have to thank Scraped Resin for this one. I think that maybe before the very first La Bulla, Antonio Palau's event, I was talking with him and looking for artists that, potentially wanted to do some Lucha Libre related art. And I think that's how we first hooked up, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. Because we had other connections after we first started talking, but I'm pretty sure it was Scraped Resin that linked it from the beginning.
Yeah, So first, shout out. Yeah. Shout out to Scraped Resin, an amazing toy maker out of the Sacramento area. And so thank you for what has now been a wonderful number of years working with Jesse. But let's take a step back, because one of the things that I absolutely love about having nothing to do with us working together, but your art in general, is that there are certainly artists who have an absolute signature style where you look at a piece of art and you go, oh, I know that artist. And you and the Urban Aztec style is 1,000,000% one of those just iconic, the art goes with the artist. And so walk us through, especially for those that might not be familiar, how you came to be Urban Aztec and how you developed or decided to kind of make this signature style your calling card.
Oh man, that sounds like a long question. Well, so I guess my style has always been reflective of like cultural roots of like of myself. How do you say this? I'm all like messed up. Sorry. So it's about like my own ancestry, cultural roots, being Mexican and Native American, and a few other things mixed in there as well. But so it's always kind of like bringing up some of that flavor in it, and like the ancient culture, but then also mixed with like the like vibrant colors and stuff with say like graffiti pieces, things like that, and some like animation mixed into that as well. There's so many different things like fusing into it, but they're all have that cultural steez in it, right? So they're all like, you know, each piece has a throwback to say like Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, you know. It's almost like a small history lesson within each piece. And so there's like a lot of that always going on. And yeah, I don't know, I mean, trying to like infuse that into each piece. And when you're working with say other people's designs and stuff like that as well, like other characters, and how do you put yourself in there and then also respect what they have before, and kind of like the process infusing those. I don't know if I jumped ahead into another question now, but it's just rambling on. And but yeah, so I mean, I think that's always a big part of it as well, is how you treat those things. And but yeah, I don't know. I think I babbled enough about that one. What's next, bro?
Well, yeah. So I mean, where right now, you know, when I was first introduced to you, I learned about your murals that are all over the Bay Area, you know,
Yeah.
big pieces. And obviously, you know, to me, that kind of the Urban Aztec, even if we see your work on a T-shirt or a hat or a poster, you know, it lends itself to these ginormous, you know, building wide pieces. Was the mural aspect the first part and then came kind of smaller versions of it, or are the murals just larger extrapolations from earlier pieces you had done?
I guess it's all kind of concurrent, right? So like, you know, I mean, I've always been drawing characters, doing things like that, right? And then I think the murals are the most like super big, vibrant public pieces of the different characters. And then a lot of those same characters will be toys, for example, also that like, you know, say the Mictlan character, the Mictlan Teculi, like is the Aztec god of the dead. And I've painted that character a bunch of times, but also done it as a vinyl figure back in 2010, I think was the first time. And so then, or probably around the same time I was painting that character. And then, you know, since then have put him into murals all over the Bay Area. And, you know, I think the style for me developed probably back in 2005, I think was probably the closest remnants of what we're seeing now. Because you're always evolving as an artist, right? And, you know, the way I used to draw, I'm sure is completely different than now. The way I paint has evolved. Everything is always, you know, you're always learning. But I think 2005 was like, when I did a custom vinyl piece that really kind of became the signature, and then I kept repeating it. So like before I started doing toys and things, you know, I started out collecting. And then back at that time, if you started doing custom pieces, you basically had to sacrifice one and paint over it, you know, so they didn't have blanks at the time, in, you know, the early 2000s. And so you really had to kind of like, you know, I think for me also, like I knew if I painted one and sold one, I could buy more. So, you know, it was always kind of a barter system that was going on. And, but so I started doing the customs, and then after a while, without really even noticing, I think it was pointed out to me from someone else that I often use the same color schemes. You know, like they're like, dude, that's like your OG color scheme, right? The red and gold and black with some yellow and a little hit of blue or something. Like, oh shit, you're right. You know, I hadn't really even paid attention. I just kept using the same color scheme because it was something I was attracted to. And then with the toys and stuff too, then once you do a piece, you start doing other like color variants with the vinyl. So then I started doing like the shadow colorway, which is like silver, black, white, jungle, which is black, green, yellow. And then ironically, all those color schemes also kind of match a Bay Area team in color schemes. So like the jungle is like the A's colors. Shadow is like the Raiders. And even the OG, I guess closest would be the Niners with the red and gold. But yeah, so it was a trip, like how that kind of played out as well too. But so I think I said 2005, right? Sorry. So I was part of the Kid Robot Money custom show, and for that one, I did a Aztec Jaguar Warrior that was part of that custom show back in 2005, and I thought that one really was the first like capture of this style. Because I had always been doing stuff that was related to my culture, whether it was Native American or Aztec, Chicano style stuff. But I feel like that was the one that was the closest to what we're seeing now. Like that was the beginning of it.
And I think, what's really interesting, this is still a relatively young podcast, but what you kind of bring to the show that we haven't had a guest on yet is that you're an artist who has really two sides to the commerce and the licensing side of it, which is, what we focus on here on the podcast, which is, not only have you created these characters and this IP that you now are, creating the vinyl figures of and the posters, hats, etc. So you're licensing out your own IP, but then you also have the side where you are being brought on to projects and commissioned to do work and create other pieces in your style. For example, not to jump to the end of the story as where we're at now, but the Sideshow pieces that you're doing right now that are officially licensed Marvel, but they're done in this Urban Aztec Lucha Libre style, where you've got this Iron Man piece and you've got this Wolverine piece. And so we'll rewind a little bit and go back.
Yeah,
but
no
really, what was that?
I see. Yeah, no worries. We're gonna cut the first part anyway.
Yeah. I think that there's some really fascinating, you live both sides of the coin. And I'm sure that gives you a little bit of insight into how to also, negotiate and be part of both sides of that coin. So I guess let's take a step back because there are so many topics to talk about. But I guess let's talk a little bit about the explosion of the vinyl toy world, and really, I guess one of the ways that you started to be known outside of the mural landscape here in the Bay Area. But so when you're doing a vinyl toy and it's based on your original IP and character, and it's not just your version of painting a dunny or something like that, what is that process like when you are starting to work with the Kid Robots, the other companies of the world, how much of that is 100% whatever you as the artist wants to do? How much of that is kind of dictated by parameters, whether it's number of colors or anything else that you have to kind of compromise on when creating these pieces?
Got you. So I guess it also depends who came to who with the idea. If they came to you, they might have some ideas what they want to see versus you're like, hey, here's this design that I have, and what do you guys think? And if they like it, they're like, yeah, just let's do it. So there's that already. So if you come to if you show up to the party with your own design already, you're kind of ahead of the game, and there might be no pushback whatsoever. Whereas then if they're saying, hey, let's do this. What do you think you would do? And so you start working on it, and then you're kind of trying to hit that, that mark. But it all kind of depends. And then also whether like when you're first starting out as well too, just on another tip, like just getting that first one is the hardest part, so I remember when I was trying to get deals with different companies and stuff. I mean, most people were cool, like, maybe not right now, whatever, this and that. But it was all about getting the first one and proving that they could like invest in you or whatever, like if they were to make a toy with you, they would sell, something like that. And so I think that's the hardest part is people want a proven product before you've done it a lot of times. And so once you've actually proved it, then you're good to go for anything. But yeah, just getting that first one is so tough. I remember walking around Comic-Con, I think, way back when in the early 2000s, just showing people my portfolios and stuff before I had got one. Was it, I don't know if I should call them out personally, but, some people were like, oh yeah, thanks, man. Just like gave me the book back, didn't care what was in there at all. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Guess we'll never work together in the future, but toy to our, yeah, we never did work together. But anyways, but so the first piece that I did work on was with Kaching Brands, which later became Mind Style. And so for that one was the Fooly Cooly Canty robot, and so that one was like a limited edition of 100, where you're basically putting your style on it. And then, from there there was other things that happened with Kid Robot and a bunch of other stuff. But then and that's more doing your piece on top of another piece. So then going through with your own full original, like 100% from the, sketch to the sculpt to everything, is an entirely different process. And that one is a trip too. And that's like, most people don't, like, if you try to do it by yourself, most people are not going to tell you how to do that. Like, that's like, hey man, who do you make this toy with, or what factory you work with? Like, yeah, I'm not telling you any of that. And with good reason, I guess. They're not trying to give up their, sources or gum up their, their production lines or whatever it is. And I've seen it both ways, where I've told people too much and where people didn't tell me anything. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to tell everybody, it'll be fine, And then I've had it backfire on me, where then all of a sudden I couldn't get a toy made, like, oh, what was I thinking? Oh, that's why people were so protective or something. I don't know. But yeah, so then I guess on the process of creating your piece, yeah, I mean, generally, like, I think I answered that like an hour ago in this talk, but, the pushback's a lot less on your own design. But then whether you are like trying to fund it yourself or to get it done with another company is a whole other thing, whether you're licensing that, which in that case, it kind of becomes like a royalty situation, where it's like, all right, you guys do the whole production and I'll take my piece of it and, either, get cashed out or get, product and do whatever. And then otherwise you could just do it yourself 100%, which, some people, I mean, Kickstarter didn't exist back then. So this was a whole other time. Nowadays, I mean, and there was no 3D back then really either. This was all hand sculpts. So like, I think until the last 3 or 4 pieces that I put out, they were all hand sculpted in China. And so, which was a whole other process. And I do personally know how to sculpt. I sculpted in wax at a production house called Images in Motion back in the day. They did a lot of stuff with Shouts Out, Cam, Lee, what up? And but so we did some like toy prototyping, bobbleheads. There were some really sick sculptures that came out of there. I was fully a novice, but they taught me how to sculpt in wax there, and it was awesome. It came really natural, which was weird, and I didn't expect it. But at the same time, so nowadays I don't sculpt very much at all. So I figure let the professionals handle it, and I'll just kind of art direct it. But it does help you have that 3D kind of sense of space to be able to work with it at times too. And I don't know if I spun that question out of control.
No, that was good. Well, that actually it leads me to my next question. So we are now dipping our toe finally. Right now we're dipping our toe. 6 months from now, we'll be deep into the world of action figures and collectibles because of our new deal with Boss Fight Studio. And it is
Those are so sick, dog.
Dude.
They're so sick.
I talked about it on the podcast with Eric, the kind of lead designer and one of the co-owners of the company. A year and a half ago, when our agent Pamela from Firefly came back from Toy Fair, and she's like, I talked to this company, Boss Fight Studio. They want to do toys. I was like, I've never heard of them, but if they want to do toys, let's look into them. Let's talk. And when I discovered they all came out of Hasbro, and it was it was very much kind of like the story of Super 7, which is nobody was making the cool stuff that Super 7 wanted to make, so they started making cool stuff. And for the guys in Hasbro, it was like they weren't able to do being part of Hasbro and being part of a mass toy company. There's certain rules you got to follow, certain brands you got to stay on track with, and they were like, we want to do more detailed stuff and these types of products. And so it's been great. COVID backed us up a little bit, but there's so much cool stuff coming. But even without COVID, from concept to completion, we're talking 12 to 18 months for a figure. So what I wanted to talk to you about was, in terms of like the vinyl figures and the collectibles that you've created, what is that typical timeline from the time you first put pen to the paper to kind of sketch it out to where it's being sold, on sites and, in collector shops?
So normally the timeline, I would say, is about a year. It's been longer in times, but where there's been snags in production, whatever else. I don't think it's been 2 years ever, but somewhere in between a year and 2 years was the longest. The fastest was maybe like 6 months, something like that.
Wow.
But those were ones that was like, hey, we can, fill this slot right here if you can get a design to us like tomorrow, that sort of thing. And
okay, on it
pretty quickly. And everything is rushed the whole way through, all the whole process. I think those might have been like 6 months. But yeah, in general, the toy stuff is about a year. And it's funny too how that's changed, where like in the past you would put out a design that you're working on, kind of showing the whole process. Here's the sculpt, here's the and people will get excited about it, like just hyping it up for the future. Where I feel like today with Amazon and the immediacy of everything, people don't have patience anymore, and they're like, the moment they see it, like, give it to me now or don't ever give it to me, which is super funny, right? Like they're like, oh, there's the toy, where can I buy it? I want it right now. Why isn't it available? So you're like, dude, do I wait until it's finally done before I even talk about it, or how's this work? But so yeah, it's kind of an interesting time right now.
I think we've seen that on the Boss Fight figures, because last year,
why don't I have that already? What's going on?
Last summer at Expo Lucha, we showed off the first. It was really the first just kind of 3D prototype, print prototype of Phoenix. And then even then we were telling people they wouldn't be out for literally a year. And we were showing kind of some things along the way. And then, like I said, COVID kind of backed us up. And then now we finally got the first actual unpainted factory samples from the molds, and we're showing those off, and people are excited. But yeah, same thing. It's a long process, and you have to kind of weigh. We've got a group of people that are like, why isn't Wave 2 on sale right now? Why can't we pre-order Wave 2? But at the same time, we got all this other group of people that are like, where's my product? Where's the Wave 1? So I totally understand that struggle. And I'm a huge fan of the process and seeing the process and getting to kind of see those bits and pieces along the way. But I do think you're right that, especially in the day of order something on Amazon and it shows up, not even necessarily like Amazon used to be 2 days. There are literally things that we order that show up the same night now, without even trying. I don't remember what we ordered last. We ordered something last week off of Amazon, And it was like on our doorstep, like 4 hours. And it wasn't even like an Amazon Prime Now thing. We just literally ordered it, and it was on our doorstep within like 4 or 5 hours. And we're like, how's it even possible? So I totally, I definitely get that. When it comes to the kind of approvals process on your own stuff, do you find that it's relatively easy for the most part? Do you find that as you kind of have to go through and approve your own pieces, that whether it's a vinyl toy or a print or anything that you're licensing, that it's relatively, a simple process? Or do you find yourself being like, oh, I see now why I have to go through all this rigorous stuff when I'm working with, Marvel or whoever else, because this isn't right. And I want to make sure that this gets, fixed to be the right angle, the right color, the right whatever.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's a lot of facets to all the different mediums, right? So like each different one that I'm working in kind of has its own stuff. So like the harder ones to work on generally are, say, the sports ones. All right. So like, and anything Disney, of course, is super tough. But so, yeah, like if we want to go like, so, I say like, like within rock posters, within toys, within like clothing, and, all the different stuff. But so like with the sports teams, they have a specific guideline of everything they're looking for. So say, for example, when I worked with, I'll give a few examples. So when I worked with the Sharks, that was fairly quick. Like it happened like that. And that was a whole interesting story in itself, where it was like, at the time I was like, man, do I still need a website? Is social media enough? Like I was thinking this in my head, and then all of a sudden I got a cold email from nowhere that said, hey, do you want to work with the Sharks? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And it was like, I answered the email and talked to them on the phone after that, and they were like, oh no, we're old school. We don't even look at social media. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right, glad that answered that question. And and then so
real quick, just for those listening who aren't familiar because they're either not Bay Area or hockey people, we're talking about the San Jose Sharks in the National Hockey League that Jesse did a exclusive jersey for in his style for Hispanic Heritage Night. Super dope jersey. So back to the story.
If I abbreviate way too much, thank you for explaining that. That was sorry. And but so working with different professional teams and things like that, they normally want a specific colors. Like you can't do this with their logo. You can't change this. You can't change that. The Sharks one was actually pretty quick, and it went from like working on it to like getting it approved really fast, which was awesome. And so they were super easy to work with, and it was through with them, that was through a creative agency that actually like hired me. That I had never met them before either, but so they were super cool to work with. The Division of Labor, what up? Shouts out. And then then from the Sharks thing, that led to a lot of other different sports things. So then I did some Native American Heritage Night first for the Oakland A's, and then Hispanic Heritage Night, or actually, sorry, it was Mexican Heritage Night, like straight up. They already had like a Latino night. But so the Native one was the first one, and with that one, I remixed their the A and S logo, which they don't let anyone do that, and they tried to shut it down the whole time. Like it took so much fighting to get that design approved, and it was crazy, man. Because then once it finally did get approved, they were like, dude, this is the sickest shirt we've seen in like forever. This design's crazy. How, like, oh my God, it's so rad. Everyone wants one. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that was the point, like we're trying to improve your brand, not like, it's not like we're trying to do anything against you. We're only trying to help you, like that's, the general thing I'm trying to do is make, cool stuff for both of us, so, and so that was a trip, man. So yeah, that was like, I put like, how do you represent like every native tribe in there, which is over 500 tribes, and so it was tough. But so I used the Northwestern style, which is a more abstracted shapes that so it worked super cool. So you would automatically know that it was, native when you've seen it. More like the Tlingit and the other tribes from up north. And but so any which way, like doing that A1, it was such a trip. Like, so I think they were like, yeah, this is cool, except for you can't use our logo. Like, what do you mean? And so I finally like had it told the guy, like, look, one more, like, just ask your boss one more time and see if they'll approve it. And they finally were like, okay, yeah, they said, cool, let's do it. And then, yeah, so that was that one. And then say with like rock posters, each band's kind of different with what they're expecting and what, in general, they just want to see, your style if you're already there. Like they kind of have an idea what to expect from you. They'll need certain things like how is the venue shouted out? What day is it? Depending who's making the posters and stuff too. That's always a little bit different.
And we're going to be back in just a moment with more with Urban Aztec, Jesse Hernandez, as we get into the resurgence of the rock poster scene. Plus, we talk about Urban Aztec's collaborations with Masked Republic, working on remixing the masks of some of the most legendary luchadors, and his work with the WWE to release dozens of officially licensed shirts into foot action, all that and much more. But right now, we're going to take you over to Lucha Central with Denise Salcedo, who's going to tell you all about the other great programs this week on the Lucha Central Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Monday, Business of the Business returns as Masked Republic President Kevin Kleinrock welcomes artist Jesse Hernandez, better known to many as Urban Aztec, to the show. The two will talk about both sides of Jesse's works in the licensing game, creating original designs for prints, toys, and apparel, and working with everyone from Bay Area sports teams and Marvel to Masked Republic and the WWE, merging his signature style with some of the biggest properties on the planet. On Tuesday, on Mass Mats and Mayhem, the crew takes aim at an AEW star they are throwing up on the wall of shame for what they say is stealing from a former Lucha Underground star. Then they even take aim at Lucha Underground itself, calling Season 1, Episode 15 trash, and debate the Hano's use of the TV series, plus lots more. Check out the premiere video stream Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. This Tuesday night, live on WrestleBossLive.com, Fabi Chulo is back to talk pro wrestling and MMA. Coming off a huge victory at the Fight to Win grappling tournament, John Thomas joins the show to talk about how wrestling has helped his jiu-jitsu game, and then luchador Steve Payne will join the show to talk about his experiences in SoCal, AAA, Lucha Underground, and more. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. This week, things get a little extreme as Lunatics Extreme grabs a seat at the table and the crew talk Lucha Extrema in Mexico. Plus, you never know who else may stop by unannounced. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez. This week, two of the PWR Training Academy's top prospects, Charisma and Gavilan, pull up to the spot to talk about learning the Lucha Libre style, how the pandemic has led to distance learning even for pro wrestlers, and getting things back and running at the academy. The life of a Lucha Libre trainee is not often explored, and even I'm really looking forward to this one. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. This week, both shows update you on the upcoming CMLL pay-per-view and their big annual Aniversario event, along with a look at this coming weekend's WWE NXT TakeOver and SummerSlam events, which includes the in-ring debut of El Príncipe Misterio, Dominic. Plus, on Lucha Central Weekly in English, AAA Superestrella Mr. Iguana gives his first English interview. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms. And please be sure to give a rating and review to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week, everyone.
Let's take a second. Let's talk about the rock poster thing, because I feel like that is something that really came back around. Because when I was probably like my senior year of high school or first few years of college, so like mid '90s, I was buying so much rock poster art. Like literally, like right here, I've got Bad Religion, Offspring, No Effects, just all this great, by artists that were, I was going to like the record store that had the posters and I was buying a few on a regular basis from a few artists that I really liked. And then I feel like that kind of died off, and there wasn't really this big scene of kind of collectible posters. And even back then, it was like one person who was doing the whole tour, and they were just changing out the dates. And now it feels like there's a whole new resurgence of trying to come up with these collectible posters. I had Jeff Everett, Rockets Are Red on. We talked about it because he does a lot of it as well. A number of times a year. So, was I just out of the loop, or was it something that kind of came out of nowhere? Maybe the last 5 years, and now there's this whole movement for a collectible poster for every stop on a rock tour.
Well, I think there was I think it's always been happening there, but there was probably less people involved. I think at that time. But I mean, like in the 60s and everything, in San Francisco, the Haight-Ashbury, all that, like the whole poster scene there is crazy. And so a lot of those posters are super valuable. And I feel like a lot of it came from there. And but then, I mean, like the poster scene, like say a Frank Kozik, Jermaine Rogers, them homies, like we're killing it back in the day, like 90s and whatever else, right, with a bunch of different bands. But yeah, like I don't know, it seems like it got curated more recently to bring in more artists and more illustrators, so that there's a lot more flavor into it. And so I think it's probably within the curation of the different poster series that they're definitely opening it up to more artists, and also it could be through social media too, right? Like where more people have access to that stuff as well. If you weren't in that poster scene as much, maybe you see it more now. Thanks internet, awesome. But like we're all more connected in so many different ways now. Or like dudes that I know that are painters or whatever it happens to be, they'll get the call to do like a Metallica poster or something, and you'd be like, dude, what? And just kill it, and that becomes their new thing. Like, all right, I do posters all the time now. Including myself. Just getting trying to figure out how you even get involved in that scene, and the homies Zombie Yeti and Zoltron were the ones that kind of brought me into the whole thing. And so yeah, big ups to them, man, much respect. And so like with the Primus tour, that was they connected me with that. And so that was the first poster I did, was the old school like Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory poster. So everyone had to do something themed on that. So like, man, how do you do an Aztec Willy Wonka? So I did this crazy like Oompa Loompa headdress that said Primus, but yeah, but it just even had like, how do you fuse these two things, man? Like that's kind of crazy. But yeah, so it's always a trip, like how that works,
So one of the things that I've noticed from your poster work and some of the other things that you've been able to do is a lot of times it seems like you're creating an original piece of art that is then placed on these posters, but then you're able to use that original piece in other mediums, whether it's on a T-shirt or on a hat. Like you can't use the Primus name, obviously,
Right.
but you're able to take the original part that you created for it and then use that on other official products. It seems like a really good use of time, right? It seems like you're able to come up with stuff and then I hate the word exploit because it sounds so negative, but exploit it in other mediums.
Whatever art you create. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, we were breaking up for a minute there, brother. I don't know if we're good. I think we're
we're good.
Again,
I was just saying, it seems like a good use of time and a good deal to be able to create some of these official posters, but then still be able to exploit your own art then in other mediums after that as well.
Yeah. It's with most of those deals, whatever art you make is yours. Like it's your creation, it's your license. You just can't reprint it with the band's name. Like that's theirs, like this is art,
Sure.
That's their property. This is yours. And just, it mixes for that one piece. But then after that, you can do whatever you want with it. Just don't, like you're saying, don't have the logo on it. And it makes for a good multitasking, So, then like even, so speaking like when you were talking about the Wolverine luchador piece, that came from a rock poster, right? Originally. So I did that for a Pussifer poster back in 2015, which ironically, I was doing that design for myself. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll just pitch it with these other designs. And then of course they chose that one that I was keeping for myself. I'm like, God damn it. All right. I guess it's now part of this poster. Fine. All right. And so then doing that design, I was just trying to create I'm like, how can you mix, Wolverine with a luchador? And so I started, working on it. And I can also, make it Day of the Dead. So he's like an undead, skeletal warrior. And then I realized, I'm like, dude, Mysterio's mask fits Wolverine so sick, and like, I'm going to flare out the Eagle Warrior parts and, then drop these other symbols in and just kind of like kept building off that. And create, you're basically making something new by mixing all of those in between. Like getting, your voice within the Wolverine, within, all the Lucha Libre and trying to like create this, new version of it. And then having that become an actual piece licensed by Marvel was insane, bro. Like, I still can't believe it. Like, that's, I actually started with the Iron Man piece, the Iron Mayan. And so that one, I did the whole bust and was planning to do it with another company. And then they kind of backed out of the deal because they thought it was too expensive, whatever it was. And it was going to be a bootleg at the time. Like, just, all right, here's this thing you did. It's not specifically Iron Man, it's, something else. And then I pitched it to another company and they were like, dude, we don't want to deal with the Marvel approval process. Is going to be too tough. We don't even want to mess with it. So I said, oh, okay, cool, no worries. And then I ended up showing it to a friend that worked at Sideshow Collectibles, Dave Igo. What's up, Igo? I see you, brother. And we were just, like homies. Like, we had been homies for a while, and I had never even thought of like mixing business with friendship or anything like that at the time. And I was like, dude, hey, do you think that you guys would be interested in this design? He's like, yeah, let me see what the company thinks real quick. And I showed them the designs. They're like, dude, they love them. They love your stuff. They want to make it. I'm like, what? Hell yeah, let's go. And just kind of, through asking one time, it all became, it started happening. They're like, they're actually working on this vinyl thing. And dude, they'd love to have you in the line. Let's roll, and that's where that came from. And then, but at that time I hadn't done the full turnarounds for the Wolverine. I just, pitched it as a bust. Here's the front view. And so then had to, kind of hurry to give them the rest of it and work on it from there. But yeah, dude, like getting to work with those guys is just like it's a crazy dream come true. Like when I would go to San Diego Comic-Con, like that's the booth that I always go to. I'm like, oh my God, what? Look at all this. This is insane. Like every sculpt is insane. Like the paint jobs, everything. Like I literally like the year before that happened, I was just like drooling in their booth at like all these insane, like dioramas of characters and life-size busts and everything. And it's just crazy, bro. And like now they're making a life-size bust of the Wolverine, the Wolverine,
which is insane. The one that looks like stone. I mean, literally, I want to get that now so that when we have the Mass Republic corporate office, that can be like in the lobby. Like it's that kind of a show off, a centerpiece. But and I bought the Mysterio Wolverine one, so I'm excited for when that finally. Speaking of COVID delays, I'm excited for when that.
That's exactly what that is too, bro. It sucks, because that was supposed to hit the beginning of the year, and then bam, the COVID quarantine starts hitting in China and all over, and production is just halted for everybody. So now, I mean, it's supposed to hit any minute now, but they're like, I'm sure they're hesitant to give you an exact time with everything happening now, I imagine customs is kind of crazy as well, So
we did on Lucha Central's Lucha Central shop. We did this Penta Zero M kit. It was a jersey and socks and some chanclas, and literally we got one shipment of chanclas in on time when it was supposed to be there, 3 months ago now, and literally the other box of chanclas has been sitting in the port for at least a month now, not delivered to our partners at Lapel to finish fulfilling. It's insane what's going on right now. But I want to rewind real quick to the because you had already designed the Iron Mayan and the Mysterio Wolverine. What was that like in terms of approvals with Marvel? Because it was already done, right? It wasn't like a commission from them to have you go do a comic book cover or something. What was that process like, having to get that approved? Were there any notes you got back in terms of things that could or couldn't be?
So it was, they were minor for the most part, but there were changes to both. And so with the Wolverine, they couldn't have the cross on the head. And so I switched the Nawi Olin symbol, which was on the chin originally, up to the head. And so they say, hey, we don't want to say one way or another with anyone to, be, pro or against or, whatever it happens to be. They're like, that's just not part of what we're doing. So we got to switch that part out. And then kind of the same thing with the Iron Mayan. I had a symbol on his chest, which is like a step pattern. It's positive, negative kind of symbol. And they were just kind of like, what does this mean? I was trying to explain it to them, and they're like, well, just eliminate the symbol and it's fine. We want the arc reactor to just be the light like it is on Iron Man. It's just a straight up arc reactor. Okay, cool. I get it. That's fine.
That's cool.
And so I think that was the main one, and then within the designs, interpreting the sculptures from the designs, there's still and that's mainly me who's hey, can we adjust this, can we change that, can we put black lines around this, can we trying to make it look how you want it, and so they're interpreting it and looking at it, and then you're also kind of as you see it, calling things out, and everyone's just trying to get it to the dopest look it can. But yeah, so I mean, there wasn't a ton of pushback.
Right.
And I think the funny part is too, in a way, I think by the time it gets to them, I've already beat myself up so much with the designs, trying to get them on point that there's not that much that you can say, because I already, told myself how terrible I was, the whole time I was working on it before it was finished. Art's kind of rough, man. I think you're always your own worst critic.
Yeah.
So,
for sure. Well, so let's transition a little bit, because I don't want to run out of time to talk about some of the stuff that we've done together, and you getting your foot into the world of lucha libre, because some of the listeners are going to get upset if we don't talk some wrestling. So after we met, I think the first thing that we did was the Dr. Wagner Jr. poster and T-shirt, where you put your Urban Aztec signature style on what at the time we thought was just going to be a T-shirt and a poster of Dr. Wagner's mask, right?
Well, I think even in the beginning, it was just kind of like, I don't even know if we knew what we were doing, because it was for that La Bouya show. And it was like, well, is it just going to be a print, or like, what's it? Like, we didn't even know at the time.
Yeah.
And it just kept evolving from there. And but yeah, so we did the piece for that. And even so, I shared the concept just like as it was still a sketch, and it kind of blew up from there. And I was like, oh shit, wait, I guess a lot of people were tripping out on this, like, and then other luchadors are like, hey, who's this dude? Like, what's this, style you got going here? And what, and I think the next thing we knew, Dr. Wagner was wearing the mask, we're like, oh, damn. All right. It's for real now,
Yeah. I think that was, so essentially for those listening that don't really, so a luchador's mask, is their calling card, is their signature.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, unless it's like El Santo or Blue Demon, there's a lot of variations with masks. People will change up their colorways. People will change up designs. Sometimes they'll add, like, for example, Pentagon, Penta Zero M. Sometimes there'll be dragons on the side. Sometimes there'll be something else. But there's usually not, other than colors, a huge variation in the look of their mask from week to week or show to show. But after Jesse did this Urban Aztec Dr. Wagner piece, and we put it on a T-shirt, next thing we knew, Dr. Wagner was wearing a custom mask that he had designed based off of that design. And it's an incredible design. One of my most prized, this isn't a video show, so you guys can't see it, but I proudly have it on my shelf behind me.
It's on my shelf.
To then see a luchador embrace what was just a drawing, essentially, a very good drawing, but a drawing, and go out to their mask maker and say, turn this into a real mask that I can wear in the ring, was really cool. And that led to more, but I also recall the moment where you and I saw that within, I would say, 7 days, that mask was being bootlegged as heck all over Mexico.
Everywhere.
Welcome to Lucha Libre. Yes.
It was crazy. And that's, I remember people sending me photos from the Arena Mexico, like right outside. Here's the whole stack of the mask you designed being sold right there. I was like, you got to be kidding me, dog. Like, what? All right. But I guess, and that was the thing that we joked about at the time as well. If a Lucha Libre design you made is getting bootlegged in Mexico, you've made it in Lucha Libre.
Absolutely. Master Republic set up Legends of Lucha Libre to be this, IP representation for luchadors outside of Mexico. We will enforce copyright and trademark, and we will help get officially licensed products made, from the action figures to T-shirts to whatever, outside of Mexico. And on one hand, it is because the luchadors already had business in Mexico. They were already running their business in Mexico, and we're here to bring added value to them, not to step on the business that existed in Mexico. But in addition to that, it is because, for better or for worse, bootlegging is just, it's just part of Lucha Libre culture.
And then for another example, right? I worked with you on a Lucha Brothers design, and so for the jacket, right?
Yep.
And then we show up to Lucha Expo. The jacket's not there, but the Lucha Brothers are selling my damn shirt at their booth with no association to me. And I'm like, yo, what's going on, bro? Like, what just happened? I'm like, oh, it got bootlegged in Mexico, and you brought it here already? It's not even out yet.
Right, and that, and we can tell the story with that real quick. In that, so there seems to be this disc, and so the Lucha Brothers don't design their own merchandise. They have a guy in Mexico that makes their designs, prints their stuff, and hands it to them to sell. And so there is this philosophy, so to speak, I guess, in Mexico. Now, granted, the guy that does that also bootlegs UFC shirts and rock concert shirts and whatever. And so we don't do business anymore. But there's this real philosophy in Mexico that's really interesting. where if the art is of somebody, they feel like they have all rights to that art. There's a particular wrestler who I know got into it on social media with an artist because the artist had put up a piece, and that wrestler, not somebody that we represent, but that wrestler took that piece and put it on T-shirts and was selling it on T-shirts. And the artist contacted the wrestler and was like, "Hey, you are bootlegging my piece of art." And the wrestler said, "It's of me. I own this. You have no right to make art of me." And it's just a really interesting, dichotomy of the philosophies and understandings of actual IP rights and laws and protection. And there's a huge, really interesting difference, between original art and photography. Like, to me, that's still it's very weird that, like, if I take a picture of you, I own that picture. You don't own that picture. But
I was going to bring the same thing up right now too, because I was going to say, like, and that's always weird too with if someone takes a picture of one of my murals, right? And they're like, "Oh, check out this shot I got." And I'm like, "Yeah, you took a picture of something I fucking painted, bro. Like, how hard is that? Like, now you're like, I own this shit." And you're like if someone tries to sell prints or something, like, that's like super extra crazy weird, bro. Like, what are you doing? And it's a whole other side, I guess, right? It's trippy, we're like, where does that line get drawn? Like you're saying too, with the bootlegging and with that particular luchador, like, is it fan art? Is it how does this work? And, and at the same time, like as an artist that, when people take photos of you, like, they'll tag me, like, normally when someone else points out that, hey, that's this dude's artwork, and then they'll tag you in it, but it's got their logo all over it. I'm like, what?
Right.
Why has it got your logo? Like, that's my stuff. But, all right, I guess you took a picture and you feel entitled to it now. But it's weird. And I can kind of see the wrestler's point as well as an artist. Like, hey, dude, that's me. Like, why are you doing that of me and then selling it? But then at the same time, it's kind of like, well, if this dude drew that of you, like, that's dope that they did that, and then it can become this other thing. But I guess you guys should talk maybe, before.
And the thing with this wrestler it wasn't that the artist was selling it. The artist literally just made it and posted it on their Instagram or whatever, and then he took it and made a T-shirt out of it. And all the time. This literally just happened 2 weeks ago. I saw somebody did a really cool piece of Penton Phoenix. So I hit them up on Instagram and I said, hey, what would it cost if we officially licensed that piece? And the good thing is, for this person, I think they're somewhere in Southeast Asia, and they were like, wow, this is cool. We always ask what someone's rate is. And we said, what would be your rate to license this? They named the price, said just absolutely works for us. And we licensed a piece. And 2 weeks later, it was up on Pro Wrestling Tees as an official shirt for Penton Phoenix. And so, a lot of people don't work that way, but we really try to go out of our way to do that. Or we hire the artist to do, something completely original. But for going back to that whole story with Penton Phoenix, it's like they will that particular T-shirt maker, he didn't take the actual exact print. He took it and he altered it a little bit. And, it was like, dude, it's
legit,
still
like,
the piece. It's still the exact piece. And honestly, it happened again 2 more times. And I finally said, listen, guys, we absolutely cannot have this happening. So, it's not happening now. But
it was super tough because, I know that we were hoping the jacket would be there. We're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great, it's gonna kill it, and then the jacket doesn't show up, but the bootleg did. I'm like, oh great, so now everybody's wearing the damn bootleg,
right?
Or official
but
I guess it's official,
I will tell you,
sort of.
I will tell you that so that was a jacket that we did for the Lucha Brothers brand, which was their clothing line that we launched, kind of did a soft launch for. And I hired Jesse to create the first real logo. Is both the logo, their name logo, but also the first real piece that was going to go on a piece of apparel. And we did some soft.
But then it came out on AEW when they were on TV, and my man Phoenix rocked that shit for like 3 minutes on TV. I was like, yeah. So I take it back. Because it didn't happen the way it happened at the beginning, it came out way sicker and was on TV instead. So it actually may have just been how it was supposed to be all along.
Well, my plan for that brand was really to give an actual clothing line that they were the people behind. Just like, Diddy had Sean John and Jay-Z had, Rockaware. Could we create a clothing line that was the clothing line of these two young, hip, super popular, Chicano icons at this point? And, we did some releases, and then I purposely kind of put a pin in it. And there might be some exciting news coming down the pipe about that soon, including the use of your logo on something. So we're gonna keep our fingers crossed and see what happens there. I'll tell you this.
Respect, bro. Like, much respect to you. Like, that was super dope just even to get to work on that. And we've done a few things. Also, I did like the OG, Cero Miedo hands and stuff too for Pentagon. It's been everywhere.
That's one of our best-selling designs of all time, and it's still coming out for new. There's a new product that's going to be out probably by October. It's going to be rocking the Cero Miedo skeleton hands. So we'll keep you in the loop on that as soon as that deal gets done too. It's one of those deals where we'll make like 7 cents, a sale on it, but it's a cool thing. So.
Sometimes it's just about the street cred,
I'm telling you, there's a retailer that we have been working for years to break into, and we're about to break into that retailer. So this is good stuff. So, but so we do the Dr. Wagner Urban Aztec remix, and it's out there, and it's a real mask, and then the floodgates kind of open a little bit, right? So between we decide to remix Juventud Guerrera. You've got Guerrero Maya Jr. from CMLL contacting you about remixing his stuff for him, having nothing to do with us. You start working with Lince Dorado.
He won the belt right when he came out in it too. So it's like, oh, see, you got to give me do your stuff. You win.
Yeah, and then Lince Dorado had you remix his, and then used wore that mask in his WWE debut. So it was really, and there are mask makers who are known for their masks. Hayashi is associated with Rey Mysterio. Hayashi's been making Rey's masks for 20 plus years, or at this point 25 plus years, since '94.
Yeah.
You've got Bucios, and there's people that certain wrestling fans or mask collectors will go, oh, that's this person's mask, or they'll look at the stitching, but that generally does not impact the actual design of the mask. And so I think literally in the 80 plus year history of Lucha Libre, you're really the only artist who has ever impacted the looks of a number of luchadors based on adding your unique artistic style to their masks, and that's pretty badass.
That's crazy, bro. I hadn't ever thought of it like that. I'm gonna need to put that on my website or something.
Right?
No, it's been such a trip, bro. Like, and because that's always crazy too. Is then. As the artist, you're like, okay, I'm not sewing the mask. So then how do you get that produced? How do you get that made? And that's a whole...
How do you get a copy of it?
It was such a trip, man, the whole thing. And so my first luchador mask I made was based off of a Kid Robot toy I did called the Red Demon, right? And so I did a dummy of that. And so when I went to Mexico to do a art show, I was like, hey, can you guys make luchador masks? And they're like, yeah, you want to? Why? I'm like,
no, we do.
I want to make one. Like, that would be amazing. I think, like, even when I went to Mexico, one of the first things I did well, first things first, I went to see the temples, which was like the most amazing thing ever. Like it just, stuff that you felt like straight in your soul, bro. Like, the raw energy of being there was just such a trip to me, man. Like I was coming home. It was so sick. Because before that, I'd only ever been to Tijuana. So going to DF, it was a whole other feeling, which was amazing. But then I was like, yo, where can I get luchador masks? Like, right off the bat, like, yo, where can I'm like, oh, let me get the La Parca one. And, just like, yeah, like I grabbed, I don't know, I came home with like 12 masks or something like that. And then we made my own mask. And so, yeah, this was 2012, I think. And that was crazy too, bro. So like just doing that. And then when the Wagner mask happened, I was like, dude, what? Like, this is crazy. And like how, and like you were saying too, then I worked with Guerrero Maya Jr. and then Hoovy. And, like dudes just started hitting me up like, hey, we saw the design. How can we get a design? And it was like, oh, like trying to figure out how you when you become like the dude that designs masks, like it was like, there's no like playbook for that, like how do you do that? And so you're just trying to come up with cool shit and then how to make it work, like, yo, how can I, come up with a new design for this homie that represents his, where he's coming from and his heritage of his style, but then make it like super, to the next level with it. And so that was always, it's like a dope challenge for me. It's super fun to work on. And, you're like working with superheroes right there, like it's crazy, like all their persona. And for a luchador, the mask is really like the most important piece, like, and that's even for them, like probably the thing that they make the most money on top of it, because if when they sell the mask, that is, what people are after, like that's, like a piece of them. And, so that's always a trip, like to mess with that. Like, like even with Wagner, how he does a different match every match, so that it's even more collectible, with that. And, well, now he doesn't have a mask, right? So, but that's trippy. And then, yeah, getting to work with Lince Dorado when he went into WWE was off the hook, bro. Like, and he was already the homie, like when he was, doing everything on the indie scene. And, we have been chopping it up, since the Wagner piece went down with you. Like I started rapping with a bunch of other luchadors, like from just chopping it up with Mass Republic and, seeing my work through there. They're like, yo, what's up, Urban Aztec? Let's get something popping off, and, start rapping with a lot of different homies. And, but yeah, so, I mean, Lince's been the homie for a while, and, when he was going into the CWC, he's like, bro, hey, maybe now's the time we can get this new design popping off. And I was like, dude, yeah, let's get it. This is going to be sick. And so that was rad. So the first few years of his career, he was rocking the all the gear that I designed for him, like from the mask, the tights, everything. And then now he's a Lucha House Party popping off with Kalisto. And
I'm still bummed because, I mean, when it comes to collecting action figures, I only collect these days. I only collect the figures, WWE figures of the guys that I actually am friends with or I've worked with and part of our project. So of course I grabbed the first Lince Dorado figure, but I gotta say I'm a little bummed that they haven't put out any merch with the Urban Aztec mask. And I can see
that, bro.
I don't know. I can see them not wanting to, not wanting to get involved with, well, then we gotta, license this or pay this guy. But, I think maybe if they just ask, you come to terms on something. And
honestly, there's been conversations in San Diego with a couple people. I'm like, hey, dude, let's get it popping off. I talked with Bill and my boy Vonner over there, and they do a lot of the WWE stuff. And I was like, dog, you need to get the variant with the mask I designed. What's up with that? And, so I don't know if it's, hard to pull off or what, but, maybe someday we'll keep pushing for it.
Well, I mean, regardless, I'll just throw it out there now. I think I mentioned this to you before. I don't know. But, with Boss Fight, we're going to be dropping these this mini Mascaras collection, which I'm super excited about because I say this, I've said this before, like with Eric, when he pitched me on this idea, I was like, not only do I not understand how this hasn't been done before. I don't understand how I didn't come up with this idea. But we're going to be doing these blind boxes of 2-inch masks of the luchadors that come on this 3-inch bust. They're going to be really, really cool. And so, once we get out these initial waves of them, we're going to have to come back with some artist design series. And I already told them, I said, I put in my word. I'm like, listen, we're going to have to come back and do some Urban Aztec remixes of some of these masks. It's going to be dope. So we'll get to that when we can get to that. Real quick before we get out of here, I just want to kind of touch base, going back again on some of the. Oh, I was going to say before was now not only with these luchador remixes are you getting the love from the luchadors, but you got people tattooing these masks on their bodies now. I've seen a ton of the Dr. Wagner remix tattoo. We've seen the Hoovy one, on some people, and there's some really dope stuff. And I know that there's kind of you've got experience doing tattoos as well, which we didn't even have a chance to get into. But I know that there's kind of this, I don't know if it's a code or whatever, but a lot of times the attitude is like, well, listen, if you're going to go get this piece of art done, you should go to the guy who created it to do the ink. And I don't even know if a lot of people know that that you do tattoo work, or obviously, somebody in Mexico might not necessarily be able to fly here to, the Bay Area to get you to ink them. But what is that like for you when you see, fans all over the world putting these, and I guess not even just the wrestling pieces, but any of your pieces, on their body?
No, I mean, I think that's still the ultimate compliment, that somebody wants to rock that forever. And I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of my approach with all of my designs, is to make it something that I would tattoo. If it's something that I think is dope enough, I would get it, it's ready to go out into the world now. So then if other people would do it, hell yeah, I feel you, bro. No, it's ready for you, so, but the fact that they want to do it is off the hook. It's so cool. And yeah, I'm and when you see when it pops up in Mexico somewhere that you don't know anything about, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, this dude is he's walking around with that in Mexico now. Oh shit, that looks dope too. And I think that's the only part that sucks, is if they get it done by someone who's not that good. And then you're like, oh bro, why'd you get my art done by that guy? Or whatever, it could have been so much sicker, but if they get it done super pro, then it's always it blows you away, don't get the jailhouse, scratcher looking one. But is what it is, we can afford what we can afford sometimes. For
sure.
And then I was gonna say too, it's been a trip how then from the Lucha Libre, then now I've been doing a ton of stuff with WWE with foot action.
Oh, that's right. Do we haven't even had a chance to talk? Let's jump into that right now.
About it yet.
No, just talk about that.
We travel, bro. And that was just crazy too. So and that all came about because me and John at Foot Action, we had done a toy with Kid Robot, right? And so I came out to a signing in New York, and we met there and chopped it up for a while. And then, we have been talking about what can we work on and things like that. And then we realized that we both were friends with a lot of wrestlers and we're into wrestling. And it was just kind of he's like, oh, wait, Liz Santoro? Yeah, wait, Kofi? Wait, what? Okay. And, it was just a trip to see how it went. And then we started talking about hey, let's do some official WWE designs with Foot Action, all limited edition. And it went from and he's like, dude, it's a hard sell around here sometimes too, to rep wrestling culture here. And, but what we did, it was crazy because it started we're well, let's do it for Royal Rumble. We'll do 8 designs, and, we'll just kind of do it like the intros, we'll slowly announce each graphic. And, at the time we didn't know if it would work, but as we started doing it, people were like, oh, this is sick. Wait, who's next? What's, the old school Rumble, every 30 seconds, a new wrestler's coming. You know the timing. How's it going to work? And that was always my favorite pay-per-view too, because it was you would get hyped up with all the people watching, oh, who's it going to be? Oh, shit, that's who, oh, what? It's friggin' Macho Man. Oh, shit, it's going down, whatever. But so then, so we did that the initial 8 designs, and it just, it did really well, and all the talent was super into it too. And then they started popping up on the show. Like, you'd be like, oh wait, they're rocking the Eddie Guerrero right now on Raw. Rey Mysterio was super supportive with everything. He was gonna do a we knew he was gonna post something, and he did like a whole promo. We're like, oh damn, it's going down. Like, we got full videos now. Like, it's crazy. And so everything just kept building. It was super fun. And, then more wrestlers wanted to be associated too. So we did more designs. And that's kind of where it shifted from doing mostly legendary people to current talent. And so that's why I kept rolling with the current talent. And so now we're up to like 24 designs or something like that.
A lot. I've got a number of them myself. Again, people, luchadors or people that, we've been supportive of or we've worked with. I think it's really cool too, because number one, those shirts being in foot action, it's really important right now that people still understand that there is a hip aspect to pro wrestling. Because let's face it, a lot of times people miss that, or people think that that's, dead from 20 years ago. And so I think to be able to merge wrestling culture with, sneakerhead culture, or just, your foot action, pop culture, is really important right now. And I think too,
we're in like another golden era of wrestling right now, actually. Like,
it's really interesting time. It's definitely an interesting time.
It's not quite Attitude Era yet, but we're getting close. Like, there's a lot happening. And like, I remember like when Lucha Underground started hitting too, and it was like, yo, what? Like, and that's when you started getting more hype with that, and all the wrestlers that started coming through there, you're now seeing in other promotions too, right?
Yeah.
And get like it's just kind of crazy. Because I was super hyped even when that was, starting to happen. Like, oh, slick. Now you get a lot more of the lucha and the Mexican culture along with it, so that was always getting me hyped. But yeah, now you got AEW popping up, and, you see people coming from all over the place, and dudes that we've known for a while that are all finally getting shots and stuff also on that level. Which is super rad to see.
And I think just going back on the foot action stuff, WWE, again, not to talk down on any designers there, but WWE Shop, when you go to like their website, those designs are very lackluster, and there's just been a real between kind of feeling like a lot of it's cookie cutter and a lot of it, like, you don't get dope designs. Rarely, maybe a few times a year, you get a shirt that that drops on WWE Shop that is like, oh, this feels modern, this feels cool, this feels like something that you could wear, and it doesn't scream I'm a wrestling fan. Which a lot of times, at least when you look at all the stuff that we've done for Mass Republic and the shirts that we put out, a lot of stuff that we've collabed on, like, for us, the mask is obviously always going to be a centerpiece, and if you have a lucha mask, it says I'm a Lucha Libre fan, or I'm a Chicano culture fan, and that's cool. But besides that, when we're doing, like I said, the Pentagon Cero Miedo skeleton hands that you did for us, which is one of our best sellers. Like, if you know, and that's like kind of how we always try to design our shirts. Something cool to wear, and if you know, and you're in that kind of that kind of clique. And I think that a lot of times you just get these generic designs, or these designs that just aren't once you're out of middle school, you're not going to want to be wearing or something. And then that's why I think that the foot action designs that you're doing are so cool, because they don't feel like your regular wrestling shirt. And even with the what I've come to know and love of the Urban Aztec style, those shirts aren't 100% your signature style, because they don't necessarily work in the the Native American and the Chicano symbolism, but it still has that graffiti hip hop flair to it. And so I see them and I immediately recognize them as Urban Aztec. And I'd say it's a great blend of what's cool and what can translate to the mainstream. And giving these wrestlers actual cool merchandise, which is really hard to find sometimes these days. So big fan of the collaborations. And yeah, so if you're listening and you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to stay on top of it, because when these designs drop at Foot Action, it's only limited. Sometimes it's 100 pieces. Sometimes it's, a couple hundred pieces, but they'll sell out pretty quickly. So keep an eye for them, because I've missed out on a couple myself over the time, and you don't want to miss this stuff.
And it's been a trip too. So like, and WWE shop, they saw what we were doing also, and so now I don't know if you've seen it yet, but some of the newer ones that come out on Foot Action will later release on WWE shop for a short time also.
Nice,
which has been kind of cool to like led to other things. And when they saw what we were doing, also they hired me to do an Eddie Guerrero poster for one of their boxes that they put out, which was super dope to
which I still got heat with you over, because you didn't tell me it was coming out and I didn't get to order it. So we'll talk about that later.
No, dog. Like, they were like, oh yeah, it's gonna. I'm like, hey, when's this coming out? They're like, oh yeah, it's gonna come out tomorrow, but they give me some like Eastern time, but they didn't announce it either. They just kind of dropped it. And by the time I was gonna share it, it was sold out. And I'm like, oh well, should I even post it? Like, what's the point now? It's already gone. But yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, here's the poster. They sold out earlier. It was part of this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, like I said, dude, I got you. Don't even worry about that. As soon as I get copies of it, man, I got one for you. No worries.
What has the approval process been like on that stuff? I mean, is it going to WWE to get approved? And I feel like you told me that there was at least one or two shirts you pitched that didn't get cleared for release.
Two of them have been shut down. Yes.
And shut down because the talent didn't want to be part of the line, or shut down because WWE and you just couldn't come to terms on the design?
One, because the talent didn't approve. The other one, I'm not 100% sure exactly what happened. But I was doing a shirt for The Rock and he didn't approve it. So thanks, bro. Like, you're like my favorite wrestler and you didn't even approve the shirt. Thanks, bro. I don't know. So hopefully we'll get that cracking, bro. You're from the Bay. I'm from the Bay. Much respect, dog. Let's get it cracking. But anyways, like, I've been a fan of that dude since forever. So I'm still sad that didn't happen. But it will happen eventually. I have faith in that. But yeah, so through the so he was fun fact, he was one of the original 8, and then when his didn't happen, that's when I did Macho Man.
Nice.
Macho Man would have been
great.
A later one, and I think Macho Man was one of my favorite ones also of that first 8. And so like with that whole style too, like, I mean, obviously it wasn't going to be like exactly the style you know me for in murals and everything else, because you had to hit the likeness of the artist. And so I'm like, all right, so I kind of like developed that style on the fly. Like, how can I come out? I'm like, all right, well, I was like, I thought it'd be dope if you like kind of desaturated the wrestler, but then hyped their colors, the stuff they're known for, because it's like so iconic normally with everyone. Their persona has so much flavor. You don't like toning it down, but then also kind of like re-emphasize that. And then getting more of the graffiti vibe with, I got to do dope, like hand styles for pretty much everyone. But sometimes they would say, hey, this isn't legible. Like, can we make this more legible? So I'd have to adjust the letters and things like that. And then, so I think each time the slogans have to get approved, the catchphrases, like to make sure it's on brand for the wrestlers. And then also their likeness. And then, they want, most of the time they'll want like whatever you put for their like catchphrase or something. Sometimes there's no specific one. You're trying to kind of like, what is the essence of this person and, or their persona? And sometimes it's not fully clear, or they're not using that particular one anymore. And so that's always a trip. And then, I think I was saying like the likeness also. So that's why it kind of had to be, semi-photorealistic with who they are. And yeah, so that's kind of always a trip getting those approved. And then, sometimes we'll kind of roll with an idea, and then for whatever reason, hey, we can't really do this with that character, and so we'll kind of have to switch gears and try a different style or idea with it. And what else happened with that? But yeah, so I mean, there was each time they all have to go through kind of a rigorous approval each time. So, and there's normally something. And so, like, even say in the case of Ric Flair, I had, like, in the initial sketch, I had a bunch of his other sayings, like, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Woo! Everything. And, but I think there was some heat with him and the man, right? With Becky Lynch, like there's some other stuff happening there. So I think that was ultimately why we ended up just it just said woo, like across it. You know exactly who it is. It
right.
Doesn't even have to say Ric Flair. Like everybody said woo, and yeah. So then, like so each one is kind of like, does it still fit them, and where are they currently in the in the universe? How do you use them? Their phrases or whatever. Yeah. So that was all a trip in the approval process there.
Well, shout out to Hotch and Sock over at the Foot Action collab.
Yeah, big Hot. What's up, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really cool that you've been able to do that. Check out.
We're gonna do a collab of me and him also.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna do the Oakland Aztec, connection.
Nice. Am I gonna get a shoe out of that? Because I take an Urban Aztec shoe.
We're trying, bro. I mean, I've been trying to get the shoe thing popping up. I hope we might be able to make it happen there.
All right.
And I've been close a few times to getting a shoe. It just, for whatever reason, hasn't happened yet. I want to say there's about 3 times it almost happened.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time here, but if all goes according to plan, we'll have you back on again down the road, because we've been collaborating on some longer term projects, an animation project that we've had in the works for years, another live action and/or animation project that by the time this actually drops on Monday, I will have signed an agreement with the Mexican animation studio to start developing that one. So we'll come back and we'll talk about some other things hopefully down the road when some of these projects are more public. But before we let you out of here, how do people find, follow, learn more about Urban Aztec?
So you can find me online, urbanaztec.com, on all social media. It's at Urban Aztec. Also JesseHernandez.net. And the super old school immortalstudios.com. But yeah, so I still try to keep all those websites active. You can come through and check it out. Yeah, man, I'm around. If you look for me, you'll find me.
And we'll post the links, in the information about the show, so you can find them easily. Dude, Jesse, it's been, I mean, you are one of our favorite collaborators, one of my favorite collaborators. It's been awesome to work with you, and I know we've got a lot more work left to do. It was really cool to get to talk to you today and talk about some of the parts of the process and the journey that we don't normally get to talk about. So thank you once again for being my guest. And check out all his social. Check out footaction.com, and we'll keep you informed.
Thanks for having me, brother. Hey, like, same. I always look forward to rocking with you on whatever it happens to be. I always get to do some dope projects and hang out and do whatever, man. So big ups to my man Kev, always putting it down.
And that wraps up another edition of Business of the Business. I thank you very much for joining me this week. If you liked this talk with Urban Aztec and liked hearing a little bit more about the kind of inner workings of the licensing game, especially when it comes to artists, I encourage you to check out the first 2 episodes of my series with Jeff Everett, a.k.a. Rockets Are Red. We get into his really unique kind of approach to the design game, how he ended up where he is now, doing amazing work for tons of bands and officially licensed posters for Gallery 1988 in Los Angeles, along with a number of other projects, including a lot of art for Masked Republic and our Expo Lucha conventions as well. So check that out. If you're into the toy industry, you can check out great interviews that we've had lately with Eric Aranya of Boss Fight Studio and Jeremy Padower of Jazzwares, who just released the new AEW figures. If you want to hear from pro wrestlers about how they handle licensing and merchandising, there's a great interview with Colt Cabana. Check out the entire archive right now. Just look up Business of the Business wherever you get your podcasts from, wherever you got this podcast from. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another amazing guest that will take you inside the world of licensing like you have not been before. Have a great week.
If you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's time to do it. luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. From weekly polls to annual awards. Seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And on top of that, it's free. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.